Who's excited to be back? Okay, back may be a bit of an overstatement with some places still in hybrid mode and all that. States having different regathering policies, I totally get it. But we are more or less back. Kinda, sorta. Hi everybody, my name is Josh Griffin. I'm a junior high pastor. We're at my church. I co-founded a youth ministry resource called Download Youth Ministry. So glad to hang out for a few minutes today. Well, hey, whatever stage of this new normal you're in, you need to know this. Youth ministry has changed since we saw it last. I mean, number one, it's now more important than ever. So thank you for loving teenagers. It's a big deal. And two, well, things are a bit different now. So my goal today is to walk you through some of the changes and suggest some sensitivities to them in our new reality. Now, a few things you may have noticed already. Teenagers have become way more comfortable being disconnected. Students have shorter attention spans than ever, squirrel, and screens have gobbled up their hearts and their time. So let's dive into this a little bit, right? I just said your students are more comfortable being disconnected than ever. That's a big realization. The pandemic of this past season has isolated students, taken them away from their friends, moved them into their bedrooms, into their own headspace. I mean, I see it in my own teenagers. I have 4 of them, basically a little youth group in the Griffin house. And them being alone and disconnected, it's just not necessarily good. In fact, I think one of the big new questions that faces us as youth ministry right now is, how do we get kids connected again to the church? And how do we get them connected to each other? So once we get them connected to a service or your small group or a program again, we need to help kids connect with each other to the point where they open up about what they're thinking, what they're feeling. In fact, I mean, you may have noticed already that not all friendships have survived the last year. In fact, most didn't. So friends have shifted, priorities have shifted, and patterns and habits, well, they're shifting quickly too. And as a little aside, as we get students back together again, be prepared for friend drama to return. It's gonna show up again as students re-engage. It's just the nature of relationships at this stage of life. In short, volunteers, I want you to hear this. It's gonna take some hard work post-pandemic and lots of personal invitations to get students to come back. It might take more than one invitation, more than a couple of times. And maybe for you, you're gonna host a welcome back night with your small group and just rally everybody together. That'd be a great idea. Or you host in the year 2020 fellowship dinner where you mark the end of the era and you usher in the small group time again. And here's what I want you to know. Maybe your persistence in bringing students back and inviting them back to the church, maybe it'll pay off in a way that you would never know until eternity. Maybe in heaven one day, you'll understand why this hard work mattered so much, rallying kids back together. In fact, this week, one of my parents grabbed a volunteer. They literally grabbed them by the shoulders and said, "You have no idea how much of an impact you're making. You are literally saving lives by caring and loving for our students." So leaders, work hard to welcome students back to our ministry and push them to connect and open up with each other too. So coming out of the pandemic, we and students both have really short attention spans right now. So as you gather together, let's have some realistic expectations when we re-engage. Remember, they've spent the last few months or even a year listening, and it's their chance to finally talk, like to be in a group again. So I've got a feeling that once you get them to finally emerge from their cocoon, you might have to try to reel in the conversation because it's gonna go really, really fast. And maybe just a little coaching for you, don't worry too much about reeling in the conversation the first few weeks back, because talking about anything, I mean almost anything, is better than not opening up at all. And students are going to need time to ease back into conversations and opening up. So maybe don't be as strict as you have been in the past. When you let them laugh and connect and tell stories, all the simple act, even just of being together, is going to help them open up to the deeper truths inside their hearts. So as we crawl out of COVID hibernation, keep in mind that you're also now ministering with a mask. So your tone of voice, your eye contact, attention, your nonverbals, they all carry more weight than ever. I mean, now everybody's voice is muffled, and guarded hearts and fleeting eyes, those are the enemy of building bridges back to faith and to your small group. So remember to get rid of your phone and muster up your most positive body language. Maybe even create your own new culture of welcoming and engaging students. I mean, you know the drill by now, right? Like air high fives and foot taps and elbows. And what was so weird a year ago, like are we elbow and fist pound? What do we do? It's now that physical connection is more important than ever. And finally, remember to check in on the mental health and the family life. Like, it's easy for families right now to keep secrets, but there's real pain. There's pain in marriages that have suffered, hurt, loss of jobs and finances or relatives. There's grief over those things that we lost and things that we didn't get to experience that are now gone forever. And the new normals can be so frustrating too. But all of these things that have been happening in families, but not all of these families have had healthy outlets to share. So here's a couple of simple thoughts or ideas or questions you can ask, like, how are your students dealing with this? And maybe talk about that as a group, or do they have the help and resources they need? What could we do as a ministry to care for them? So as we open up as a society, let's push our students to open up our hearts and deal with the mess inside too. And don't forget to minister to parents as best you can. I'm one too, and I can tell you that as a parent, I am exhausted, and I'm sure that this is impacting my kids and our teenagers as well. So let's try to be the ones with extra patience, extra energy, extra interest and intensity, extra joy, and extra hope. Here's what you need to know. A year of COVID is a long time. Our students are not the same as when we saw them last. So get to know them again by asking questions with no bias, no agenda. In fact, attached to this training is a little worksheet with some pretty great questions to help you launch into awesome discussions and begin your youth ministry season anew. Questions like this might be helpful. Like, tell me about how the pandemic has affected your family. Tell me what you missed the most. What did you do with all the extra time? What friends have changed? Did you find new friends to connect with? What was the hardest part? What was the weirdest part? What is a memory you'll never forget? Did you pick up any new hobbies? Or do you make great sourdough bread now or whatever? What memories did you make? Here's what I want you to know. I'm thrilled that you're investing in teenagers. They need you more than ever. Parents are counting on you. And Jesus is pleased when you care for his kids. So blessings to you as you minister and care for teenagers, especially coming out of a wild COVID season.